Okay, we are officially live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Talk About It Tuesday. Today, we are going to be focusing some time talking about the track tempo and thought we would reach out, and we were able to obtain a special guest in the program again tonight, which would be National Staffer with Track Bowling, Matt Sanders. So, Matt, before we go over some more of those credentials, just wanted to say thanks for coming on, and how you doing this evening?
Oh, doing great. I want to thank you guys for having me. Glad you picked this ball to talk about, and just hope discussions over the new track stuff coming out and all that good stuff.
Yeah, awesome. So, Matt, just kind of a little background on Matt. I know most of you have probably seen him on TV, most recently, probably in the PBA League. But if you are not aware, Matt was a two-time All-American NAIA at Marian University, where he was also the Conference Player of the Year. And after graduation, Matt jumped immediately into the pro scene. And in 2017, was able to bring home PBA Rookie of the Year award and also captured his first title in Memphis, Tennessee. So pretty great success right off the bat for you, Matt. And, we couldn't be more pleased to have you on here talking about this ball. So I guess first and foremost, what we like to do is we like to kind of get the tech stuff out of the way, and then we'll ask Matt a little bit about, his first impressions of the ball. This one has been out for a little bit of time, and kind of talk through where it fits in his bag. So for the techie people, individuals out there, this one has that DR5 Pearl cover stock on it and the Tempo core. If you remember back, the DR4, which would have been the version before that, you would have saw in the original Tundra Pearl. So kind of the next iteration of this cover stock. We'll call this one kind of a medium RG. 256, and then with a lower differential of 038. And we pair that basically with a surface prep of 501,000 Sayer with compound. So basically gives you that kind of medium to higher RG ball with a lower differential. And again, kind of the next step in the line from the popular Tundra series went into the Tempo to kind of fill one of the newer parts of the line. So Matt, you said, great. Glad we were able to, pick this ball to talk about with you. Why don't you give some of the individuals out there watching kind of, why did you make that comment? Kind of some of your stats, how you kind of roll the ball, tilt, and all that thing.
I actually talked to several people about this. I have a pretty high tilt at the moment, so I kind of went back for the last few years and looked over some of the balls I really like, and I noticed that just several of them had the same diff numbers, 038 to 04. So, this fits right there perfectly. Now, this one has a little higher RG compared to some of the other ones. I used to throw the Heat line, the Eruption Pro line. Kinetic line is probably one of my favorite lines of all time, and they all have around the same diff, same RG as well. This one has a little farther or higher RG, so it gets a little farther down the lane. But this is something that fits right up my alley on just house shots, a little lighter oils. Now, you probably won't see me throw this on tour very much just because it's pretty weak. But bowling around tournaments, subbing in leagues and stuff, this is my go-to ball right now.
Yeah, and it makes sense. If you've seen Matt, bowl, we like to have fun with some of the lefties on the program, especially some of my local staffers here. I always pick on them and tell them, just stand, throw it 10 to 5. But Matt's definitely not the your traditional left-hander, if you will. You're not going to see Matt, trying to trap it at all times just up the track, unless the lane forces him there. But, Matt definitely likes to get around it a little. So his, comment about having higher tilt, getting the hand in a different position than you see some of the traditional lefties, if you will, more up the back of the ball. So obviously, as a professional level, he's able to, manipulate the hand, but, natural release and natural aesthetically of having to look at the lane allows this kind of, like you said, higher RG, lower diff piece to kind of probably feel like it blends out a little more. Now, Matt, when you throw your tempo, I'm not sure if you have one or two or multiples in the bag. Box finish for you? What are you hitting balls pretty frequently?
I actually did not touch this one. This one looked good to go. I didn't touch it. I don't remember the numbers of how I drilled it. I know it's pinned down, so it flares even less than it's supposed to.
Okay.
But I want to drill another one pin up to get a little more flare, put the pin a little farther away.
Yeah, makes total sense. And sometimes when we talk about making comments about RG, sometimes I always want to go back and make sure that everybody that's out there, if they're not up on the tech side of it, when we talk about low RG versus medium or high RG, we're basically talking about how soon that core is going to spin up. Okay, so if you're talking about something with a low RG core, it's going to rev up sooner. As opposed to something with a high RG core, which is going to be the opposite, where it's going to get through the front part of the lane. It's going to have more energy retention down lane, and not try to see the front so much. So, keep that in mind. As we talk about any ball over the program, when we're talking through numbers and how they match up, how it fits your game. We spent a ton of time talking about making sure you're with, you're talking with your pro shop operator if you're not close to come and see me personally. But it's important because Matt made a very good point where, he went back through his bag or pieces that he liked over previous releases and understood the ones that rolled really well for him. So he's going to go through in the future and he's going to know based on his numbers if he's probably going to like a ball right off the bat, right? Because there is definitely going to be some bowling balls that just don't match up with our ball rolls. And that's every player in the world. Okay. There's not going to be a home run. Every ball that we have in each one of these lines is going to be perfect for everybody. So it's an important point he made of how he kind of tracked back and made some evaluations of things that he liked and, what balls he's going to like and drill going forward. So it's a great point there, Matt. I think it's one of the better ones that I've heard on a comment just to kind of share with the folks out here. So some of the other balls. So like when this fits in your bag, Matt, we could talk about numbers, so we're blue in the face, but from just looking in your bag, what else is in your bag right now? And kind of give us an idea about, let's say just from the, bowling leagues or something locally, how this kind of fits in the bag, what you have right above it, or if you have something below it as well.
Right now, I've probably got the Proof Pearl. I just drilled a dynamic swing that just came out. I really like that ball. Now it's a completely different motion, a lot slower down lane.
Mm-hmm.
Think of what else I've been throwing. I think I just drilled an Omni
hybrid.
Yes, Omni hybrid recently too. That's also a little more down lane. It still has that smooth type of motion that the original Omni had, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Those the newest ones that I've been throwing. Now, the tempo, like I said, I don't know if I'd start with it, but it is a go-to piece on house shots leagues that I'm bowling. But some of the other ones, like that dynamic swing that I talked about, that's a little more surface, a little bigger core. And like I said, it slows down more. So that's something completely different that I'd see that I'm throwing if I'm going to bowl on some type of that's different.
Right, and it makes sense. And I love roasting people and picking on him, but that dynamic swing, like you said about it, it's got to be pretty special because even Wadka is making it look good. He like 2-3 weeks ago, the first time he bowled league, since he's up in Michigan, he goes bowled like 530, just bowled miserable, went out and drilled a ball, got something to match up a little more to his eye, and I think he's after 2 or 3 weeks, he's averaging like 230 and posted like 780 the other day. So 300 pins or 200 pins better than the first week out. I think it's something you may want to look into. But I've recently put holes in that one as well, and I agree. It's a little slower down lane, really smooth piece as well. So, but the tempo, I would say too. For me, it's not going to be something that I throw in the fresh. Maybe if I scratch it a little bit, alter the surface, but a box finish, lower diff. I'm not going to be throwing that early. It's going to be late when they're really getting chopped up, something a little cleaner through the front part of the lane. But something that's not going to be a hockey stick reaction either, because that doesn't strike very often. It's pretty to look at, but it doesn't equal 10 most of the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, speaking of pretty, the ball looks good in the first place. When I saw the, like, man, I got to have that. That then dynamic swing looks really good too. I mean, just the shelf appeal on those two.
Yeah, when I first saw the tempo, the first thing I thought of with the covers and the color. Now I'm dating myself here a little bit, but it looked like a Synergy to me. So growing up, Synergy and the Synergy Pearl, almost the identical color scheme of this ball.
Yeah, for sure.
So, like I said, I'm dating myself. I'm 42 now, so it's I'm starting to get in that realm of where Wadka is. I mean, he's a couple months away from the senior tour, but we love to pick on him. But again, I think it's this is one of those things where it's going to be a great compliment. I know before we jumped on the feed here, you had spoken. I think you had a Web Tour hybrid in the bag as well, and I think it's that's a good one that we talk about too, because that's kind of actually a little slightly lower diff than this one, different cover on it as well. But for me, this would be a good complement to that, or a step down where that the Web Tour hybrid, is kind of not going through the pins correctly, or you need it to be a little more projection down lane, and then take advantage of a Pearl cover stock as well.
For sure, yeah. The Web Tour hybrid is something I built up probably a few weeks ago, really. And what was cool to me was the motion pretty close to the original. I mean, it was very, very close. Actually, it was hard for me to tell if it was much different because I don't have the original with me.
Yeah.
But it like the exact same ball. Maybe it was a touch cleaner. I couldn't tell. But I would have loved to throw the old one compared to the new one because it seemed the exact same to me. So, yeah, the tempo would be just – it's got – low flaring just like the Web Tour, but it's just a little more, but it's going to be a lot cleaner. So it's something you can go down to after a Web Tour hybrid for sure.
Absolutely. So, good ones that are coming in, Matt. We'll take some questions here and there, and I definitely want to make sure during the feed as well we talk about some of the other releases that are coming out as well, because they're hot and heavy, and we'll talk about why releases are so prevalent right now. But Dom Latola popped in here, and he asked, curiosity, what bowling goals do you set for yourself, both near and far and long term? So, good question asked of a person at the professional level here.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's pretty simple. I've had a couple, about a rough year and a half after a shoulder injury, and it just hasn't gone well. For me, it's just to get. I'd like to get the TV again. It's been a while, so to get back there would be great. There's a few things I worked on at the start of the whole pandemic. I went to sliding instead of going heel toe. I've been heel toe finished my whole life until the middle of this year, and it took me a while. I'm not gonna lie. It took me about 2 months to get comfortable with it. Now I finally got my ball speed back up. Certain things getting better. But I made kind of a list to go through, and I'm about halfway through it right now. I know the season could start up at the start of the year again, so I gotta get working on it.
Yeah, it's good. It's hard, and it's a good point, because no matter what level that we bowl, whether we're a casual bowler that just goes out and bowls 3 games a week, you have to put the time in no matter what level you're on to stay sharp and or push through into the next thing. And shoulder surgery is a tough one. Shoulder issues to come back from, obviously. I know a lot of my clients here, they'll probably raise their eyebrows and go, well, why are you so hard on us about footwork? You always say how important your legs are, less so sometimes than your upper body. But obviously when it's the shoulder and the movements and getting in a position, that's a tough one to come back from, along with knees and backs and other things that this sport has that kind of holds us back. But what kind of from that aspect there, what is your regiment, Matt? As far as you're a big gym rat guy, what do you do to keep yourself ready to basically jump back out there on tour if they start having events come January? What are you doing right now to kind of prepare?
Well, it's funny because probably about a year after I joined the tour, I started going to the gym. It's probably 4 or 5 days a week, which that's a lot. That's not shying away from going there. So I was going a bunch. But I wasn't really going there to just get swole, get huge or anything. I was just going there to stay in shape. I know I wanted to get through. The long rounds. I was bowling really well, and sometimes you bowl 20 games, 16 games a day, and it is mentally, physically exhausting. I could tell. After probably 4 months of just working out harder and just going more often, that I felt like I could go all day. I could bowl as many games as I needed to, which was huge at the time. So now recently, the pandemic kind of slowed everything down because gyms were closed and everything. So for a few months I was off. I got back on the gym regimen again. I got back off because I had several trips, and I started up last week. So that's going to be the goal again, is to get back to 4 or 5 days a week and then get ready for the start of the year, hopefully.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I think it's overlooked in our sport too often about just the amount of stamina it takes when you get into long formats and short days of sleep, and getting just being prepared at all times. It's not about, always physically, working on the lanes with your swing and your footwork and things along those lines, but stamina and being fresh and feeling energized and feeling good going into a round can be even more important than anything else, because if you start losing your legs, in a round, especially as you're moving in, you're kind of trying to dig, and really making some bigger angles and really getting the body more engaged. That's when you're going to find out real quick how good your endurance is and how good your conditioning is. So what, Matt's sharing with you and what I preach all the time is, we got to make sure that we keep our legs and our core strength, at an optimal level, because that's what's going to separate you from some of the others that are in the field. I think too often our sport has been known as kind of the beer league, beer bellies and booze and stuff along like that. But if you look at the individuals at the highest level where Matt's pulling out on tour, and you look at the mainstays who are, making shows, weekly, look at those individuals and kind of the shape they're in. And you can tell, and they mention it all the time. These guys are conditioned. You got, Kyle Troop and things like that. These guys are keeping themselves in shape to be able to, for the long haul. So, take that for what it's worth. And, I promise you, there's always somebody that's out there that's working harder. So if you're going to push yourself and you want to get to that level, or whether you want to go from the local level to the regional level, do a little self-evaluation and understand what you can do for yourself, even off the lanes, because there's so much more to it. So I think it's awesome, Matt. I'm glad to hear you're in there. I need to do those things myself. I go, I'm guilty of being a guy that kind of goes through the swings where I'm all about fitness and health and things like that. And then I go on a spree where, it's okay to eat 3 donuts a day and, just bacon and eggs. But, it's you get out of it what you put in. And I think that's, the important message out of that. But
sure.
Another good one coming through here, and I think this is a good one for you, Matt, because, kind of asked about track. So for someone not used to throwing the track equipment, and I'll say, track has always been kind of the techie company, with multiple brands in the bag. What do you think sets track, above the competition, whether it's, our brands or other brands? What is the track kind of, background? What is track all about?
I think one thing, right, just being the techie brand that we talk about, I think up to down, just the line of bowling balls that we have just has everything to it. You've got the bigger balls like the Proof, and now the Proof Pearl has like the same motion, just a little longer. Like we talked about before the broadcast, it had the Latitude. The Latitude for me and for most people seemed like a smoother reaction. It was something a little different than both of those. And like if we're talking about the Tempo now, so that's even weaker. So right now I feel like we've got just a full line of bowling balls right now that just fulfills every type of motion you're looking for, which is not easy to do. Sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're not so good. Just happen.
And it's hard because, with the acquisition, obviously both of us, actually, me with the Hammer brand and Matt with the Track brand, we came from Hopkinsville, and with the acquisition, they didn't acquire the inventory. Okay. So when the Brands of Brunswick took over, they essentially took 4 brands over from scratch, no balls essentially in the line, other than what was in the market. And they had to go to the drawing board and had plans laid out for all of 2020 to kind of, fill out the brands. That's why you're seeing a ton of releases right now, because we released a couple, then COVID hit and it pushed everything back. So now, they're really doing their best to kind of fill these holes in with releases. And I think it's a good segue into kind of, we're talking about the Tempo being low end. You talked about the Latitude, and how the Proof and the Proof Pearl complemented each other. So we have a Latitude Pearl coming out, and we also went above the Proof line, and you're going to see the Strata as well, which is going to kind of, again, it completely fills top to bottom in that line, where this ball is going to be kind of above that Proof line. So it's just always the addition. There's always an intent, when they're coming out with bowling balls. And, I couldn't agree with you more, that I think this brand and, even the other brands of Brunswick, they're doing the right things to make these bowling balls fit and the shapes from top to bottom in all 7 brands, because you're going to have your individuals who are loyal to maybe one of those 7 brands. And you want to make sure you have offerings from top to bottom in all of them, right? Yeah, there's going to be crossover in 7 brands where there's balls that are pretty similar from, let's say, Brunswick to Track or from Radical to Deviate. But I also think that they're all still distinctly different from a technology and a cover perspective, that you still get separation between them.
For sure. I mean,
so yeah,
just like you said, I think that's one thing just stands out. Not even Track, but like you said, every Brunswick brand, we have a chart that shows kind of where they're putting every ball and where it hooks down lane and how weak or how strong it is. And how they explain it to me. I mean, they're trying to fill the chart up so they have an option for everybody. And I think that's the biggest thing right now.
Right. And I know you shared with me as well. So, talking about the Strata and talking about the Latitude Pearl, I believe you did a video shoot or something on these balls already. So you have gotten to throw them. I know it hasn't been a lot of time, but what are your first impressions on those 2 pieces coming out?
Yeah, I threw them not very much, but I threw them for the videos, like you said. And I mean, the Latitude, really good looking ball. And the first thing I noticed when I threw that, it kind of had that same smooth motion as the original Latitude, but it's just cleaner. And I think that's something that we did really well with the Proof Pearl compared to the Proof. I think the Proof Pearl had a very similar motion, but it's just cleaner because it's supposed to be. It has a shiny, it's pearl. So I mean that's just they've done really well with. And then the Strata, it had a lot of surface on it. It just looks like hook in a box whenever they handed it to me. So it didn't disappoint. It was very strong, but it was still very continuous through the pins. And like I said, I didn't get to throw very much. I've never bowled there before that day, but I was striking a lot with that ball, and it looked really good. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. What center did you do the video shoot? Were you up in Muskegon, or did you do it at a satellite location?
Muskegon did it at the plant, or not the plant. Sorry, the
facility, and
Right.
Yeah, it's okay. And from what I've heard at the facility, they're tough there too, especially from the the right side, from what I hear. But that's just Ishman and them guys talking. I think if Ishman would post the shot, it wouldn't be a big deal. But he hasn't posted a shot since I think '94. So he's working on it though. That's yeah. So speaking of the Strata, speaking of the Latitude Pearl, we'll give you real quick there. Like the Strata, we were talking about that being a big ball. That's going to be low RG 2475 050 with an intermediate diff of 017. So big ball, big intermediate diff there. That Latitude Pearl is going to complement the original Latitude 2511 045. So Matt and I were talking beforehand. He likes those diffs kind of between 38, lower 40s and stuff. So it doesn't surprise me that that Latitude Pearl matched his eye there a little bit based on those numbers. All right. So other ones there, Matt. So questions from me to you, I guess, would be you're through the the shoulder surgery, the injuries like that, getting back in that fitness regimen. So we always like to ask players, what is your goal now, Matt? So let's say the PBA returns. What is in your mind, what is an accomplishment for you, or a goal that you have for yourself going into a new season?
I mean, every season's. I'm there to win. Pretty simple, but I mean, like I said, I haven't been on TV in a while, so that's kind of a first step to get there. Just to win on TV in the first place would be great. That would be different because obviously I haven't, but it was on Extra Frame at the time before it was Flow Bowling, so it's different than being on TV. I remember the first time being on TV, we had a practice, probably it was 2 or 3 hours of practicing, me just constantly throwing shots over and over again. I was so nervous. It's just nerve wracking. It was completely different than anything I've been through. So it's a whole different animal. So just getting to that part in the first place is kind of a goal in its own. So hopefully we can get that going again. But I mean, just to get there, like you said, it's a process. I mean, I've got to get better at certain things. I've got to get back to doing the things I'm good at and keep working at my weaknesses in the process too. So.
Yeah, and it's for those of you out there that don't know, Matt's talking about it being nerve wracking. I mean, if when you make the show, okay, and I'm speaking to this as a rep. A lot of the years I spent out with the girls on the women's tour. Um, it's amazing how fast it goes by, and the lights that are on you, it doesn't. When you watch it on TV from home, it seems like it's kind of drawn out, but when you're in the moment, it is quick. You feel like you don't have as much time to think. It's hot. The lights in there are just blazing, and it's I haven't had the opportunity to do it as a player. I've had an opportunity to do it as a rep in the background, and I'd have to imagine it's just as nerve wracking. Sometimes it's worse because we all know that the individual that's on the lanes wants to win, and we're in the back trying to make the best educated guess we can to help them, and we're not always going to be right. So, it's that invisible oil friend out there, and it changes lanes in a hurry as well. When you get those TV lights going, and the lane beds are heating up from the lights and stuff like that, it dramatically changes what players even saw during the week. Sometimes when you get to a championship pair, it's a different animal. It's really hard to explain until you're actually there in the moment and you experience it. But you obviously, whether it was extra frame or not, you got the one title under your belt, and obviously hungry for some additional ones. But what in your opinion, Matt, like, what about for players that are maybe at the regional or the local level? What would be your best advice for them into trying maybe to take that next step, or from making the transition, whether it's from college to the professional ranks? What advice maybe could you give to the folks out there?
I think definitely. I mean, regionals are a really good way to do that. I mean, you probably won't find a mix of just every touring pro out there, but you'll have some guys that are really good and some guys that are, just like we said, that are trying to figure out if they want to keep making that step forward. That's really one good spot. And we talked about before the broadcast too, my whole process. I don't know if it was half a year, about a year after college, and I bowled a bunch of just big amateur tournaments where some of the pros kind of, just compared myself. Whether it was to where I finished or just what I need to work on, and that's kind of how I went through it. So, I think experience is the best way to go. Just bowling on tour at the start of the year, you'll talk about who's sharp and who's not. It's not always just fundamentals. It's getting used to seeing transitions, seeing what you're bowling on, seeing the different ball motions on different lane patterns, different oils, everything. So, just the experience in general, you can't beat that.
Yeah, absolutely. Terry Mize jumped in here and said, I've had the pleasure of seeing you bowl a lot and on the same pair, and I might be able to answer this, but he's like, what is your favorite part of the lane to play? I've seen you play the gutter like a boss. Yeah, I seen him play the gutter this past weekend too with a purple and white maximum. So just so you're out there, folks, that it doesn't always have to be the high end balls. You use what's going to get you to the finals, and whether it's a plastic maximum or not. But I don't want to take the thunder away, Matt. So what would you say is your favorite portion of the lane to play?
Well, that's what's funny is the gutter is really was never my favorite place to play. A lot too. Everybody's kind of a product of their environment. You see a lot of guys that like to hook it, are really good at hooking it, and some that are completely opposite and they play. And I think that came from where I grew up. I could still go back down. There's not a lot of oil. And I think that kind of shows how I bowl now, because I hook the ball. I have a lot of rev rate, and that's kind of how probably got through the front part of the lane when I was younger. I did the same thing. So you can tell by certain guys watching them bowl kind of where they grew up, what they bowl on, just because, like I said, it's a product of their environment. So actually, I grew up hooking it a lot, but it took me a while to figure out how to do the gutter. I wasn't very good at it in high school. And then in college, I knew I had to really start working at it. Now I've definitely gotten better, that's for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, purple hammers help too. I hated playing the gutter as well until I got some purple hammers in my hand and got a little confidence getting out there. But a lot of good bowling balls out there that can help complement and make it a little easier for rev dominant guys to kind of get to the right and not feel like they got to throw it at it at all times. So it's different. Fred McGee says he really doesn't think the gutter's anyone's favorite place to play. Fred, I have somebody that's about 20 feet away from me in the kitchen, and I can tell you right now that is definitely her favorite place in the world to play. Is throwing it over her left toe, up 1-2, and if that's in play, I don't want to bowl her. So I wouldn't say all, but it's definitely a we'll call it a lost art form. In my days growing up, before my time, days of lacquer, I mean, sometimes you were forced there. If you're in a good wood center or an older wood center like my place is, you push yourself out there at times too, because it's the freshest portion of the wood that's remaining. So sometimes it ends up being the nicest place to play just to get away from topography issues and things along those lines as well. But real good question there, Terry. Like it. Terry is actually from Baltimore area. He's one of the guys that comes up to my shop and bowls on our local staff here. He's another one of those lefties that likes to hook it, but he likes to get on a little bit. But Matt, we're getting to the 30-minute mark here, and we've had a lot of good questions here. But I always like to ask one question of individuals that are on. So outside of bowling. Tell us something about Matt Sanders that maybe we don't know. Any other hobbies, something quirky, anything along those lines that may be, kind of an interesting tidbit about yourself.
I'd say, but I'm not the most interesting person ever. I mean, I'm just like other person. I mean, I'm 26. Play video games sometimes with my friends. I really like to golf. Not very good at it. I've gotten better probably last year or two, but I think a lot of bowlers like to golf. It's kind of like it's something about hitting a really good shot that makes you keep coming back. So,
yeah.
I mean, I've been bowling since I was 3. That's all I've known. My dad was a manager at AMF Center for over 20 years, and that's how I ended up here. I mean, I used to play basketball. I was actually pretty good at basketball, but then I just stopped growing. Just realized bowling when I was younger. So just kind of I pushed basketball to the side and just stuck with it. So here I am.
Yeah. I could share that a little bit. I played a ton of baseball when I was younger and a little bit of football, but baseball was like the passion outside of bowling. And, it got to the point as I got into kind of the high school years and stuff that, I kind of started thinking, all right, well, I'm pretty good at baseball, but if baseball doesn't pan out, what am I going to do? End up playing in Twilight leagues or something? So I kind of, switch over, focus a little bit more on bowling, knowing that, there's going to be leagues and tournaments and things along those lines, no matter what age I get to. And, I'm glad I made that choice because it's, this game is a passion of mine. I'm kind of a dork when it comes to the bowling side of it. I live and breathe this stuff. I love coming on and talking to guys like you that are on here and just, I can talk bowling all day long. And I agree with you on the testament about golf. I picked it up again this year when kind of COVID hit because there wasn't a lot we could do. We were shut down, but golf course is one of the first things that can open up. So, after 5 years not playing, similar boat as you, I'm not the greatest, but, it's that 1 or 2 shots that I hit during the round that are absolutely pure. And that's going to keep me coming back. And, I enjoy it. So,
I mean, that's
let's see.
one thing for bowling too. Sorry to cut you off. I mean, it's
That's okay.
Like never been to before. I've never even been out of the country until I went to Thailand and Korea just a few years ago. And then, I mean, there's just little things like, I mean, I used to watch every telecast when I was younger. Now, I mean, I have people's phone numbers that are my idols when I was younger. I mean, it's crazy to think about. I mean, it's just really cool.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. It's, I still get giddy when I've known Parker forever and, Parker will send me a random text message or call me just out of the blue, just to chat. And I'm like, man, it's like, I'm on the phone with one of the greatest bowlers of all time. Like this guy was my idol growing up. And I get to interact with him. The guy gave me a shirt off his back. If we're up in the New Jersey area, we're always told to stay at his place. It's just crazy. I agree with you. It's amazing. Bowling is a small knit family, if you will. It's, close knit and, everybody's just out there being the best version of themselves and, trying to, chase titles. So it's, it's amazing. And, I'm very interested to watch, how the rest of your career goes, Matt, and I know from a fact, just watching bowling, because I do more of that than anything now, that the skill set that you have, and just watching you bowl, there's definitely going to be some additional titles here in the future. Not putting pressure on you. It's just when you watch bowling as much as I do, and you watch skill level and repeatability and things that individuals are able to do, it's definitely going to be there. So folks, if you're out there and you're new to who Matt Sanders is, make sure you keep an eye on this young man here, because he's going to be a name that you hear for years to come here, and I'm ready to watch it unfold as well. So doesn't look like we have too many additional questions that are coming through here, Matt. So I think what we'll do is seems like a good place to kind of cut our feet off for the night. But again, I really want to thank you for coming on. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And hopefully in the future here, whether it's another ball, or hopefully the next time we have you on, the PBA is started back up and we're talking about, your second title. So we got something to look forward to.
For sure. Yeah. I appreciate you having me on. And like you said, hopefully some new balls come out. We'll talk about some more here soon. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, folks. So like we always do at the end of our segments here, we always want to say the same things, and that's, please go out and support bowling. The proprietors need you now more than ever. And they need you to get out there, bowl tournaments, get into leagues, and whatever you can do to support them. And we will talk to everybody soon. Our next segment turn in on Thursday evening, and we will have probably about 3 or 4 to 5 people throwing this ball down the lane when we do our Throw It Thursday segment, and you'll get to see this tempo in action. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see everybody soon. Take care now.